All right, let's go to the Buppy's Catering and Bartending Hotline. Dari Nowkhah joins us from the SEC Network and ESPN. Dari, what's up, buddy?
Hey, good morning, man. It's good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. So let's start things off with last week, the grind that is SEC Media Days. Any kind of big takeaways from last week that kind of stuck with you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that it started with Arch Manning and kind of the way he handled himself. I think Sark is always impressive, and I enjoyed that. It was fun to get to meet and chat with John Mateer a little bit. I think most people came away impressed with him. It's always good to kind of see what players stand out to the masses of media that are there. I took away that Tennessee doesn't know who its starting quarterback is, and I actually kind of believe Josh Heupel when he says that.
I got the same feeling from that as well, Dari. I want to go back to John for a second,
Sure.
John Mateer, because I heard a lot about him heading into SEC Media Days. I was like, yeah, I think he'll be good. You know, I saw his highlights, but he does it in the Pac-12. But I don't know if it's the lobbyists that show up there in Atlanta, but I left really, really thinking this guy might be everything people are saying.
I think he is really impressive. And I go back to what I hear a lot coming out of Norman in practice, his leadership style, his rah-rah, but without any hesitation to kind of get on to his receivers or his offensive linemen if he feels like he needs to. I think I think he gets tired of the Baker Mayfield comparisons, and I think there's going to be times we watch him and he's going to remind us of him. But I think that it's more with the off the field, the great personality, the leadership, the fun guy, but also the guy that locks into the work. And to hear our Mason Thomas say that it feels like he's been at OU for 3 years because of his comfort level with the Ben Arbuckle system. I don't feel like this is going to be a first-year quarterback, square peg, round hole situation. It does feel like there will be some clear vision and knowledge and comfort coming out of the chute. With Michigan being week 2, I think that's an important thing. But yeah, I think everybody, including myself, was really impressed with John Mateer, the person.
Dari, what do you think Brent Venables has to do this year to feel safe, if you will? Is this I need to see us in the playoffs? Is it 9+ wins? Is there a vision for him to feel comfortable?
I've never liked putting a win total on something like this because I think an 8-4 season could look very, very different for, 1-8. Do they go win at Alabama and handle and shock Texas, but still somehow lose at home to Auburn and Ole Miss? It's hard to assess with a win number. I think, though, the most important thing is, sure, 9 wins would be great, but show clear and obvious signs of offensive improvement. Now, what's the defense look like with Brent Venables running it day to day, calling the plays? I think it's going to be fine. But was the Ben Arbuckle hire a good one? Are the pieces that they brought in at wide receiver, do they fit? Is there an explosiveness to an offense that did not exist a year ago? Health is obviously going to play a part. That's what brought him down primarily a year ago. I'm not convinced Jackson Arnold is not a good quarterback. But what does the offense look like? Did he hire the right person to run it? His hands-off offensive kind of style now that he's employing this year, does that work for Brent? And what does it look like in general? And there's a big wild card in this too. The athletic director that hired him is stepping away. So they're going to have a new AD. And anytime there's a new AD, that new AD could come in with his or her own vision of who would be best to lead the program. So that's a wild card thing. But if you take the AD part out of it, just clear, obvious improvement, particularly on the offensive side, that gives you hope going into 26.
All right, you mentioned Jackson Arnold there. So if you just look at his stats, they were nice stats. What was it, the 2 interceptions, the 12 touchdowns. But why did it not work at Oklahoma? Why, those who watched the games, what about it didn't work?
Well, so he's playing behind a piecemeal offensive line, game in and game out. I think they had the same starting 5 twice. Injuries, and then there was some of it that was just they needed to grow. But the biggest thing was they played virtually every game with their top receivers injured. So top 5. So you're down to receivers 6 through 8 or 6 through 9, which are not SEC caliber, SEC quality wide receivers, but they're the ones that have to catch the passes and somehow create separation, which they were consistently unable to do. His hand, I think he played with one hand tied behind his back. I know he only had the 6 picks, which looks good. He had some very costly turnovers. He also was very hesitant to throw the football at times, but I don't even blame him for that as much as nobody was creating any separation. I would love to have seen him with a healthy Deion Burks all year, with a healthy group of wide receivers that he had in fall practice and in spring ball, but he never had it. And so I only think a portion of this was really on Jackson. I think it was a confluence of just negative thing after negative thing, bad event after bad event that hamstrung that offense.
Where are you on Marcel Reed and Texas A&M here in 2025?
Really looking forward to watching him, to be honest. I think that he's obviously going to be a guy that a lot of people are watching. His ability to run the football, how is his passing? I think there's something that was left to be desired a year ago, but the way they have built around him, and obviously in that portal with their key acquisitions at wide receiver, I tell you what, I went into media days last week and I was just unsure of what to think about A&M. I couldn't figure him out. But analyst after analyst, coworker after coworker convinced me that offensively they could be really, really good. Obviously, they'll be able to run the football. We know that, and Le'Veon's the key there. And the offensive line. I was worried about, losing Nick Scorton, losing Shamar Stewart, losing Shamar Turner. But that depth that Mike Elko has built, even in a short period of time, I think is significant. They might look a little different defensively, but there's no reason to think they can't still be really, really good because they're pretty stacked in that back 7 as well.
So I'm like, all right, LSU's going to lose their opener, right? Because that's what they've done the last 5 years. But I feel like they may change that narrative this year. Where are you on LSU?
I'm a little high on them, to be honest. I'm hesitantly high on LSU. I think that when you look at these teams and what they bring, and you're like, okay, where are the fewest question marks? And I tend to think it's them. It starts at quarterback, right? I mean, Bama, Texas, and Georgia all breaking in first-year starters. LSU's not. They've got a guy that's been in the system in that program 5 years. He's worked with Joe Sloan for 4, the last 2 as offensive coordinator. So I like where they are there. There's obviously talent on that offense around him. Defensively might look a little bit different, but if they can figure out the right way to utilize Harold Perkins and he and Whit Weeks make plays back there, I think that they have the fewest questions to answer. If they go to Clemson and lose, I don't know that my take on them is going to change. That's a really difficult opener for LSU, but I think in the end, they've got a real solid shot to be in Atlanta playing for that conference championship, and I think they should be a playoff team.
Dari, are you enjoying this new rivalry that is Texas and Georgia for different reasons, right? It's not because of history or region. It's because Texas is doing a really good job recruiting everywhere, but especially in the state of Georgia. Georgia's calling it, at least the fans are saying it's only about the money, and it's back and forth. Georgia won both games last year. Are you enjoying this?
I think it's great. And that was one of the exciting things with Oklahoma and Texas coming to the league, right? What new rivalries are going to form? That would make sense. I mean, they both are going to recruit like crazy. They both have endless pockets, it would seem. And we'll see if this new landscape evens things up a little bit for everybody else. But at the same time, they are, to me, clearly the 2 best head coaches in this league. So, and they'll represent their programs with everything they've got. And so I think it makes sense that those 2 programs would be this great rivalry. And on the other side, I think Oklahoma and LSU over time are going to develop a really good one, particularly if they allow those 2 to continue to play that last week of the season.
Who do you think can be the disruptor in the SEC? Maybe a team that isn't one of those top tier teams, but like you could see being maybe the South Carolina of last year.
Yeah, 2 of them come to mind. One is Oklahoma, and for all the reasons we've talked about, I think they're really going to be good defensively, and I think this offense is going to take major strides. If you look at that offense, it was historically bad. They still managed to win 6 games in the regular season, and I'm not sure how. It's going to be drastically better this year. The other one, Florida. I really like Florida. Billy Napier's done a phenomenal job of recruiting. He's got a couple of 5-stars that are going to see significant action on the outside. They bring back some experience there. They're going to be able to run the ball with Jaden Bobb. We obviously know DJ Lagway is legitimate. Good, solid offensive line. Defensively, they may give up some points, but I don't think it's going to be a number of points that they can't overcome in most days. So I think Florida and Oklahoma are the 2 potential disruptors.
This feels weird saying out loud, and I've done it a couple times, but I'm high on Alabama. And history would say, of course you're high on Alabama. But something tells me year 2, for Kalen DeBoer is going to look different. And I haven't seen Ty Simpson play enough. Nobody has, right? So that is a huge question mark. But I think with that defense and some of the pieces around him offensively, Ryan Williams, obviously, I think this could be a year that they get back into that championship fold.
Well, I think if we go back to a conversation we had about Oklahoma offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle, I think we have the same thing about Alabama offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb. But it might even be better because he and Kalen DeBoer obviously have had incredible success from Sioux Falls to Eastern Michigan to Fresno State to Washington. And that was his guy all along. And last year he thought he had him, and then Grubb gets the deal with the Seahawks. Doesn't work out with Pete Carroll, so now he's a free agent again, and now Kalen's got him back. So really what Kalen's offense has always looked like is because of Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb rejoins Kalen DeBoer in Tuscaloosa. So I think that is, as it may be, if you look at key acquisitions that are not necessarily players, I think Ben Arbuckle in Norman and Ryan Grubb in Tuscaloosa are potential difference makers.
Dari, do you find yourself rooting for SEC teams because of your position where you basically cover all the programs?
I mean, I root for the SEC in general. I'm an Oklahoma grad, and so I've always been an OU fan, born and bred in that state. So I certainly on the inside, I root for OU quite a bit. But yeah, I certainly root for the SEC to succeed. It makes our jobs more fun. It gets us to go cover great playoff games. Like, I got to go to Columbus last year to watch Tennessee and Ohio State. I'd never been to Ohio State before. It was an unbelievable atmosphere. So you kind of root for them selfishly to get opportunities, but you also obviously want the league to be as good as it can be.
And with Big Ten Media Day starting today, just the gap. I feel like the gap obviously is narrowed with the Big Ten winning the last couple of championships. But that being said, the depth is not there for the Big Ten. So when you kind of caddy and compare the two leagues, just what are some things that you can highlight on?
Yeah, I think they both have supreme programs on top, but it's the depth, as you said. It really is. I think in the Big Ten, realistically, you're looking at three teams that could win that league, right? I think it's Penn State, it's Ohio State, it's Oregon. I think that's it. Beyond that drop from 3 to 4, whether you want to go with Illinois or Michigan or Nebraska, is deep. It is significant. And in the SEC, it's not. If you want to do what everybody's doing and you say it's in some order, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, how far back is LSU? I don't think they're that far back. Oklahoma, Florida, Texas A&M, I don't think any of them could potentially be that far back. And so you could go 10 deep in the SEC with one team that could beat another on any given Saturday, maybe 12 deep. I don't think you're getting past 4 or 5 deep in the Big Ten in that situation. So very top heavy, but good league, but it's not as deep as the SEC by any stretch.
Dari, I'll close out with an A&M question. You didn't mention them in your disruptors. Is that because you still think there's another year away, or is that maybe because you perceive them to be higher than some of those teams that are in the disruptor range?
Yeah, exactly that. I perceive them to be a little higher than that. They're coming off of a bad end to last season with 4 straight losses, but I think they certainly made themselves known and present the vast majority of that season last year, while OU and Florida continued to kind of struggle a little bit. Florida got hot at the end, but I see A&M in a little bit of a different bracket than the disruptor mode. If you're looking at disruptors, I'm looking at Florida, Oklahoma, in that category, Ole Miss, Auburn, that group. I see A&M just a little bit ahead. I think they're a year ahead of those teams, quite honestly.
Dari, great stuff, man. Thanks for making time for us.
Hey, anytime. Good to talk to you. Thank you.